Hi. A couple of shows ago, I was doing things heard, seen, and felt from somewhere else. Okay? And we really didn't explore it the way I really wanted to. I had told you about some of the visions that I had had, and I had tried to do a little kitty art to, just give you a visual idea of what was going on inside of me. And so I have some beautiful people here today with me that I've been wanting to interview Dr. Malik and Mr. Boise Everett's for about 3 years or more. And I just knew that they were so up there, they wouldn't come on my little show. But they're here. And then I have someone that I really know we're going to have fun with today, Jorianne, the coffee psychic. She's usually on Bill's show, but today she's on my show. And I have my good friend, Dr. Hollins, with me. So we're just going to have fun. We're just going to have fun. And we're going to talk about some of the things, because I know when I looked up architecture in the dictionary, and the first picture they had a number of pictures there, and it was the pyramid was first, and then they went through all the little things until the end, and I'd forgotten what the end one was, but it was probably was something like a ranch house or something. But in order to go full circle, we have to stay here, learn our little lessons here on this plane and on the plane of soul, and then when we've gone back to the period where the pyramid was built, then we've come full circle. And see, people don't really understand that, because, one cycle gate closes and another one opens. But the beginning, and, it's really, I don't know whether it's really not a beginning, but it's where we start off from, where we base everything from, okay? And we go through the gamut, and then we're back on top. And I think I've gotten back on top because I know I was in the hallway, and this person, I don't know whether they're close to me, or I guess apparently they must be my soulmate, but there's so much differences. Not soulmate, there's no such thing as soulmate, but eternal mate. But there's grave differences between us. But I know his eyes, and I was angry. I called myself angry with him. We're just friends. But I called myself angry with him, and he was just staring, and I just refused to look at it. And I turned my head, and I couldn't jerk it because he would have snapped my neck. And luckily, we are friends. But he let go, and I was able to turn like that. And I said, that's the force. That's the force that built the pyramids. He could have pulled tons. He could have had me bouncing all over these walls, all over the studio. With just that. I don't know, people don't believe that. But we're going to talk about some of the other things that's something that I felt. Okay, and on the other show, you probably haven't seen it, but I'm going to be talking about some of the things that I've seen, heard, and we're going to add one more today. We're going to add smell to that, because I know sometimes when I'm at home and at night, and it's very peaceful in my apartment, and sometimes I know when someone's there because I smell them. Okay, so we're going to start with Dr. Malik.
Well, thanks. It's really a privilege to be here in the company of all of us, and actually to be going out of one period and coming into another. So I'm really glad that you allowed us this opportunity. I think one of the things that you mentioned, and since you just added the smell, I think that it's probably one of the strongest things to have. One of the things that's really happening now is the aroma therapy. And I think that a lot of times we do need to be sensitive. A lot of times we are very in tune to some visuals, but sometimes we omit that there is another form of communication. And many times energies, spirits or whatnot do manifest and do communicate. And sometimes you can taste and remember when you was a child, and whatever you associated that particular energy with, you can feel that even now. So I understand what you're talking about, because you're right. That force that could have assisted in the putting together the pyramids didn't have to be a dwarf. It could have been a giant.
Exactly.
Because God can be whatever God chooses to be.
Exactly.
But anyhow.
Jorianne?
I thought it was very interesting when you added the sense of smell, because when I'm doing my spirit work, many times I will notice an odor or a smell. Like if somebody passed away and they were a cigar smoking person, things like that. I also noticed that there was one person that had, I was sitting in the front room, and a couple of my friends had the problem with alcohol. And for 3 days, I kept smelling this alcohol that just kept coming up to me. And finally I told my daughters, please check on our 2 friends that had this problem. And then there was one more friend. And I didn't get to him for 2 weeks. And finally I picked up the phone. I called him up in the morning and they said, Joanne, I'm really sorry, he just passed this morning. And I'm like, thank you, God. Thank you, God. He had been coming to me to let me know that he was getting ready to leave. And if I had called him 2 weeks prior, I would not have been able to go to his funeral, which is very important to me. So we still had our contact, and I was able to be there at the sacred event for him. It was wonderful.
Oh, beautiful.
So,
Mr. Edwards.
I think part of the thing, as she mentioned, as you mentioned about smell, a person's life was saved because of smell. You know, I do a lot of work with young folks in the criminal system, and this particular young man was actually charged with a murder. But this elderly person got a scent of the real killer, right? And she, in fact, they had a lineup, and she could not really visually recognize this person, but she smelt this person. And based off the smell, when investigators pushed the subject or the suspect, the real suspect, he confessed. He said, I don't know how, but based off of smell. As Doc mentioned, you can smell something that when you're small, and it can either be a positive or a negative. And years later, that same smell, every time you have that scent, it'll flash you back. So smelling is an interesting phenomenon, but that's one of the senses that when a person loses other forces, like the sight or hearing, those other senses become intense or stronger.
Deacon Howland.
One of the senses that I appreciate is the sense of smell. As a young man, I learned that was the animalistic part of us that had to exist for us to exist. Quite naturally, you're all familiar with cats and dogs, those domestic animals that are most familiar to us, but many other animals depend on the sense of smell in order to survive. You can smell fear. I'm sure many of you have been around dogs, you know, and the dogs start growling and can sense your fear. And by the same token, you have to develop a sense of that type of atmosphere to know when you're in a good scene. Somebody says, I smell a rat. Have you heard that expression? That it means only that the aura of smell is around you and it doesn't smell comfortable. How many of you have been in the hospital back in the old days? As soon as you walked in the hospital, you knew you could be blindfolded and somebody take you there and you knew where you were. I'm in somebody's hospital or clinic because it smelled like doctors up in here, you know. And so it's important that this was added to the sense of sight and the sense of places that you've been to be able to relate vocally some of the things that we associate with. And it's just a perspective of life, and you have to understand how you look at things. You can look at things from an inner point, or you can look at things from an outer point. And I've looked at this whole world from outer space before they even had spacecraft or anything, and I've seen what the Earth looks like without, you know, the humanistic void to spoil it. I've looked down into the soul and hearts of animals and been able to understand why they can mark their territory so that other animals can pick up their scent and be able to defend themselves and protect their own. And so I think it's one of the great things added to this conversation.
And you know something? I just added the smell today. I've been knowing I was going to do this show for, almost a month. And I just added, something told me today to add that smell. And I didn't know that it would be that important, but I guess it's all important. And Dr. Malik, I know what you said, it could have been the Giants. I did a show years ago, and I said, the great Canaanite warrior. He puts me in the palm of his hand, sits me on the edge of a cliff, and usually let me be the town crier, letting everyone know that I'm there. And if you even think about pushing me off, he'll destroy you in one way or the other. And I tell you that life's lessons learned is treat everyone right. You never know who has a great Canaanite warrior.
That's true.
So when you look, and I know I had seen on TV, I had seen where it was a farmer about 60,000 years ago, and he said that he was a farmer, he was in the field, and that he saw the spacecraft coming down. He saw it coming down, but they were really from below. You know, and so it's that giant, because I've seen that giant. That giant is huge.
Yeah. I do understand.
He is huge, and he's touching you. You know, so that's very interesting that you would say perhaps it's the giants, but I really feel they did a lot with the Mayans. Perhaps that's the secret.
Well, I think part of what you stated, when you mentioned the pyramids, we see the pyramids, I think, maybe a little different than what they really was created to be. There was really the housing of those that was making the transition from this state as a human to the other dimension. But people want to say, well, how could they have built these? Well, spiritually, there shouldn't be a question, how could this have been done?
Exactly.
If it's a grave, if it's a tomb, and if it's sacred, the one that is sacred too could very easily commission other beings to do this for what we need done. So I think when you look at the pyramid and you see how gigantic they are, but yet how intricate they are, you know it had to be a spiritual intervener there, because even today with the technology they have, they're just now beginning to try to penetrate. So this whole idea of a dwarf, of a giant, of these beings that we don't see so much as humans is something that I think we really got to begin to explore. We are not the only ones here.
Exactly.
And the sooner we realize that,
Exactly.
the sooner we can get on about the business
There you
of
go.
developing.
Well, you know, in part of the Bible it says when the sons of gods came down and had sexual intercourse with the
I
daughters of
remember.
men.
I remember
that?
that.
Okay?
That's right.
So I'm just sitting here saying, okay, there's a lot more than what meets the eye.
Of course
It
there
is
is.
true.
Of course there is, because I know it was something I wanted to read, but I threw the book away. But anyway, it was something out of the Bible. I think it was 1 John, I don't know, 19 and 20 through something. I'm not sure what it is. But it says something about that the seducers of the people. It says, let the people know that, you know, I'm just paraphrasing. Let the people know that when people laid their hands on people and heal and all that stuff, the disciples of Jesus, when they did all that stuff is in you. And no one has to teach
That's
you
true.
that. No one even has to teach you that. It's all within.
It's
All
true.
you got to do is look on the inside of yourself, and you will find all of that. And it's right there in the Bible. And I don't understand why some people they try to say that it's mystical. They try to say it's voodooism, as if voodoo is something bad, or they try to say that you don't believe in God if you're doing this. But I feel that the body is just the wall, the inner self is just the soul is just the wiring, and when the Elohim breathed that holy breath inside you, that was God. So each one of us have our own God.
Yeah.
Well, see, let me add. See, that's the vainness of man. See, man wants you to believe in man, not a higher power.
Okay.
See, once you begin to take your energies from man and what he has alluded to of have created, then you don't look at man. You look at the higher power, which
Exactly.
is in you.
Right, right.
One thing about the pyramids, the pyramids are constructed where if they move a certain rock, a certain stone, a certain way, it will collapse. And that's why they can't penetrate it as they want to
Right.
break it down to
Exactly.
see. So it's the masterism of the gods that put that together
Right.
where man can't touch it.
Exactly.
Don't you know if man could have destroyed the pyramids,
Oh, he would have.
man would have done that
Right.
100 or 1,000 years ago?
Yeah, because I remember I watch all these little crazy stations, but they're not really crazy stations. But I remember they're saying that like the Bigfoot, and
Correct.
what they were going to do is they're going to kill him in order to study him. And I said, what? What? You mean to tell me
They do
if
that.
you have cameras and
Yeah.
stuff out there, you can't put those, all this technology they have, you can't put cameras out there wherever you see him at, and wherever you were going to kill him at, you can study him from there. You don't have to kill
right.
something to study it.
They want to deal with the cell makeup. They want to deal with the DNA. They want the same thing that Nazi Germany, Hitler was doing with humans.
Okay.
How did you have twins? So he would take twins. His scientists or his mad doctors will dissect these twins to see how do you get twins? Why their eyes the same? So that's man's vein. It's something that he does not understand. He will destroy to try to explain his own insanity.
Oh my God. That's very deep. But see, I'm still going back to the point, though. Isn't God inside of you?
Sure.
Yeah, but see, when you say isn't God, I think we try to fit God into vessels. Like you say, our bodies are only vessels, but God is inside and outside of everything, but it's not contained. And I think part of what happens is that we speak of things, particularly in the spiritual world, as if it is a material thing. Well, spiritual things are not necessarily material things. It's the spirit in the rock, it's the spirit in the flame, it's the spirit in the human. That's part of God, but it's also outside of that particular container. And I think part of what happens, especially as it relates to God being in us, a lot of people say that. God is within us, but God is over us, under us, around us. So there is no distinction between where God is. People say, well, you look up, you put your heads down, he's there. Please, it's all of us. And I think that's part of what Boyd was saying about that destruction and about, killing in order to dissect. And I think we have basically killed God in order to make him real. And it's a sadness because God was real before we started trying to crucify him and resurrect him.
Exactly.
And give him a birth date. And that's part of our problem here.
Yeah.
But I think part of it went to when they revised the Bible and they took out certain chapters of the Bible.
Of course.
Because before that, that's when people were able to get in to themselves and be totally one with God. You didn't have to go out to a place to honor God. You could be with God at any time. And then they went and took those chapters out, and I just thought there was a lot that was lost there.
Of course.
A lot of inferences to reincarnation. What was it? And I don't remember the exact chapter and verse, but it's where the one man that was blind, he was healed, and he said, Christ healed him, and somebody asked, whose sin was he paying for, his or his son's?
Right.
Something like that, So it would have been nice if they didn't take out all that, and, so you don't have to go anywhere to be with God,
Exactly.
but within yourself or out in nature.
Exactly.
We are with God right now.
Of course we are.
When two or more are
Gathered.
that is it.
But you know
There's a
something?
little more to that before you continue on. There's a little more to that. It says touching and agreeing on the same thing. So there, it's not just being together, because just being together doesn't necessarily mean that we are touching and agreeing on the same subject. And him being in the midst of us. And we cannot assume power that is given to us unless we know how to yield that power, how to use that power. The gift is not given to everyone because of their stature. And see, a lot of us are trying to make up things in order to achieve this power. We have the power. God gave it to us, but we don't know how to use it. It's like, if you never plug a lamp in, you're not going to be able to turn on the light. I don't care how many lamps you got.
That's
I don't care
right.
how many bulbs you got. I don't care how much wire you have. You do not know how to connect with the power that's given to you. We speak about the pyramids. Is that true? The pyramids was only because they had the power to do such things. And that's not physical power that we want to relate it to. This is a spiritual power
Right.
that conquers everything. Whether you want to deal with healing or seeing into the future, these are powers that are breathed into you through a spirit, breathed into you. So, you can be wide awake and it can come to you in a vision.
Correct.
Or it says, without vision, the people perish.
Correct.
Yeah.
You see, for lack of knowledge, they have a zeal to do things, outer space and many other different things, but they have to have power to do it. And how do you get that power to do things? Well, it's in you. Isn't that what you said? It's in you.
Right.
God gave it to you.
Right.
It's in you. As many as believed on him, to them he gave power to be the sons of God. Well, when you got power and you don't know what to do with it, it doesn't do you any good. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just wanted to bring that to the table so that you'd understand why man is trying to clone things or develop things. He's trying to be God. He's trying to say, well, God gave me the spirit and the power, so I'm going to exercise that power.
That's abuse of power.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See?
Because you don't know what you're doing. You're just experimenting. You want to try to make something out of nothing that you have no power to make it with.
The one thing that I found interesting that you were just saying, Deacon, was you can have many different lamps and many different light bulbs, okay? And that's the thing that I find the greatest sadness about religion, okay? It's all about God. And yet how many different countries fight in the name of God and kill each other in the name of God. And yet all of these different religions, we all started out from one place, and it was about God, okay? But then they all broke off, and they all have little different
But
pieces of
my
God.
God is better than your God.
That's right. That's what they say.
So my God says I'm supposed to run it.
And it's like,
And your God, it's insane. We
is.
all
It's
talking,
terrible.
whether you call them Jehovah, Buddha, Yahweh, Muhammad, we're all talking about going to the same place eventually.
Exactly.
Right.
But
Exactly.
the road that my God takes is better than your road.
Oh, no.
Because we have a resort that we can stop off and rest for a while. And that's insanity.
right.
But that's man's insanity.
that is,
Right.
that's just, yes, that's the ego.
You know, I was listening, but it says in that Bible, and I know it says that in that Bible, that we don't have to be taught this. What is making us, we don't have to be taught it, it's just on the inside, it's just natural, something very natural. What is this that's making us take ourselves outside of ourselves and just dealing with belief instead of dealing with knowing? What is that? What is doing that to us? What is brainwashing us like that? What's happening?
I think it's that early teaching that you receive as a child. And many of us are not going to come into our real connection with God until we really break away from and explore our personal relationship with God. You know, because we're so programmed and conditioned. I mean, I thought if you were not born a Catholic, and believe me, as a little girl, I swear, I thought you were doomed to die and go to hell. And I was not going to hang out with this little Lutheran girl because I knew where she was going. And it took me a while to sit here and say, oh my God, what did they teach me? And why did they teach me that?
Right.
You know,
Right.
blind loyalty. And I think people really need to get away, get into themselves, get into the Bible, whatever holy book
Right,
you have.
Exactly.
And then, you know, meditate and just find God within yourself.
Let me just add something to what she mentioned, the sister mentioned about chapters of the Bible being taken out. Now, those who changed the word or changed the chapter, they told you up front. If you look at any, I'm speaking of the King James Version, it says on the front, revised by King James. Now, if you look up the Webster definition of revised, it means to change.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
he told you, whoever those changes were, I'm going to change this so that I can benefit from it.
Exactly.
But it's up to us to read between the lines. See,
Exactly.
in order for you to tell me a lie, you got to tell me some of the truth.
There you go. Truth and falsehood
That's right.
strangely mixed.
And I can pick out the truth from that lie. But I just wanted to mention that.
Right. That's, and that's the truth. And see, that's why I always tell people you need to learn how to read. You know, I may not be able to pronounce all the words, but I can get it.
There you go.
You understand what I'm saying? I get it. While you're concentrating on learning those words, concentrate on understanding.
Yeah.
Instead of, you know, pronounce, because you're not going to pronounce them. Every little region have their different way. I say route, other people say root. You say tomato, I say tomato. And you say potato, I say tomato, and all this old stuff. You know, so learn what reading really is, and that's understanding.
Yeah.
Okay? And you got to know these little root words, okay? You don't have to know all of them, whole 150 or whatever. Just know a few of them, the basic ones. No, you know, the RE and the Hypro and all this old stuff. Just learn the little basic ones that you see every day, okay? And you've got to look in your dictionary. And you've got to look at all these definitions. Because, you know something, I'm going to tell y'all something. Yesterday, I can never, I don't know why, I can never really prepare for a show. It's just stuff that comes to me from, you know, being raised up, okay, from the beginning, okay. So, but yesterday I looked under Christianity, and it says something about belief. And I said, what is this? This is mumbo jumbo. What is this? What are they talking about? Then I looked under Islam, same thing. Then I looked under, there was something else I looked under. Oh, voodoo. I looked under voodoo. And voodoo, you know, it just told you the people who do this. This really wasn't telling you anything about voodoo. What kind of reference books do we have here? And I looked under psychic, and it says we don't know that much. What the dictionary was basically saying is we don't know that much about it.
Wow.
That's the only, you understand what I'm saying? So if you can read, you're not able to fall into these different little traps that people try to put you in and put these little categories and all this old stuff, you know? And if you can take time to turn around and look and not look at what's on the outside, some of these things that's going on all around you that's not manifested on this plane, if you take time to really look.
But you're talking about being free. The truth shall set you free. A free woman, a free man is a dangerous woman or man. So that's why they give you those little definitions that means nothing.
No, they mean nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Bamboozleism.
Yes, yes.
But you're talking about being free.
Right.
And that's the difference.
Let me interject something in there. You know, you said what you said is right on target. See, the dictionary does not define, as many have a concept of. It's not defined. It only tells what people agree on at a given contain in one spot.
Yeah.
And I heard him speak on this many times before. You and I can communicate in our language, in our neighborhood, in our country, or however degree you want to place that. But it's only when we agree on this that it becomes a word. See what I mean? A written
There you
word,
go.
or what have you,
Yeah.
if you want to call it that.
Right, exactly.
If we don't agree on it, then it's foreign to us.
Exactly.
You see, you know, it's like picking up a Jewish newspaper. You know, unless you can read Hebrew, a Jewish newspaper is Greek to you. It's foreign. And what you're saying is essence is everything comes from within, that we agree on the same thing. We use an expression that's called hood. Everybody doesn't if you went to England and said, have you been to the hood, you're talking about the trunk of a car or the boot, which is called over there, it's called the boot. You know, hey, put the trunk in the boot. You hear that over here, and somebody says, you got your language mixed up, young man. We don't know what you're talking about. So the dictionary just gives you what people agree on. Remember you talked about touching and agreeing on the same thing? It's just a matter of agreeing on the same thing. That's the dictionary.
Yeah.
It's not under God.
But see what you know, something there's something that I had said years ago, and you know, a lot of these things, like I said, I really can't prepare because it's just everything that I've learned, and I bring it back. But I was saying that we're here in Rome, where man's belief is stronger than any fact. Stronger, your belief. And that's what the dictionary really tells you, that your belief, that means that this is just an illusion. Like the prophets say. The sages and the prophets tell you this is only an illusion. It's only a paper moon, you know? And your belief makes it real to you.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying?
And yet,
so
and yet
how can you go around saying you better than somebody else when only you've injected that force into or that spirit into something and made it real? So you can't say that's what somebody else interject to a force and make it real. It's wrong. How
Yeah.
can you do that?
And that's why it's okay to disagree. It should be a good thing to agree to disagree.
Exactly.
To honor each other's perceptions and just this is their connection with God, stuff like this.
Right.
And yet how potent is belief?
Exactly.
How do people heal? But through the power of faith and belief.
Exactly.
Okay? To get a total beautiful healing. You know, how do they do it? People say that person should have died. In the medical area, they consider that a miracle. No. That is a natural state of affairs, excuse me, because they believed and they are in union and connection with God and the higher spirits and forces and stuff.
Exactly. So you know something, and something I was thinking about, where does predestination play in all of this? Where does that play?
Well, let me just say this. A lot of times, back to the book and the pages,
Oh, okay.
and when we see ourselves in the limited time frame that we see ourselves here in the West, we always come up short. But in our belief, we believe that all of us, before we come to earth, we go to the ancestors, we go to the Creator, and we cut a deal. That deal is your predestination.
Okay.
We agree to come here. We ask to come here. Just like here, sometimes we are so impatient, we can't wait till our spiritual parents, that will be our physical parents, are ready to go. So we say, I want to go now. So that's why you end up coming here as a child and you being with parents that are abusive or neglectful. That's because the fact that you don't remember in your mind as a human the deal you cut as a spirit with God and your ancestors. So when you're talking about karma and you're talking about predestination, all of us is part of the soul. So now I don't remember. That's because I'm a human.
Right. Right.
So
right.
predestination is from heaven, if that's what you believe in,
Okay.
into where you are on the human path.
That's interesting. I had read, I know Bill, he gets a lot of spiritual books and he lets me read them. And I had read that same thing. That and I, you know, and to a point, I really believe that. And I know I had, on the last show I was getting a lot of the hurt and the pain off of me that my mother and other people around me had inflicted on me. And as soon as I got that pain, 54 years, as soon as I got that pain out, a few days later she had passed. But I guess I had cut a deal where to make sure that I would not be any type of hypocrite or anything, to make sure I get this out first before she passed. Because you could say, well, you're saying this now and she's gone, you know, so why are you just saying this now? But it was so that the perception would be on me.
Correct.
You understand what I'm saying? So that is very true.
But you know, and speaking of predestination, once you have found, as Doc said, we cut the deal with the ancestors in the spirit, and you know what your predestination is all about. But many of us, as it come closer to us fulfilling that predestination, we fight it. See, if I'm to be a sacrifice, such as Jesus, as it get closer to the time, well, God, this is my father. Do I really have to go today?
Oh, I
Look at
get you.
Methuselah.
Yeah.
Here, 900-something years. When God told him, said, get your hat and coat, man, it's time for you to go. He said, wait a minute, God, can I stay around and build another mountain? So we fight the destination that we are put here to serve. We fight it. And that's where you get a lot of chaos.
Right,
I'll take out 50 people before I get to that destination. That's why it's so important that Jesus stopped Peter from writing. Because you wouldn't know the exact time, date,
Yeah, 'cause
place,
Peter was
and
something
how
else.
you was going to go out of this world. Can you imagine what you would do if you knew tomorrow at 12 in the afternoon it was your time to go? What would you do?
Well, you know something?
I just say, you know, but
Good question.
Oh, that's a very good question.
Solomon said, eat, drink, and be merry.
No,
for,
I wouldn't eat, drink,
for
and be merry.
tomorrow. Okay?
It's not promised.
Think about Adam. Everybody heard about Adam, right?
I don't
In the
know.
Well, most people have heard about Adam.
I've heard about Adam, but I don't know if it's the Adam that you've heard about.
Well, let's just use any Adam,
Oh, okay.
and let's
Okay.
use Eden,
Okay.
the Garden
All right.
of Eden.
Okay.
Everything was predestined beforehand, even the temptation. See, because God didn't have to put a temptation in the midst of the garden. Is that right?
Right.
Correct.
This is all powerful God. He made everything that there is before he even made man on the sixth day.
Right.
Now he puts in the garden and says, of everything in this garden, you have title to. Everything. Name the animals. He didn't send him out there to name the animals. He brought the animals to him to see what he would call them. Is that right?
Yes.
This is predestination.
Okay.
All right. And then he gave him the one thing that he gave us, a choice in the matter.
Okay.
This one tree, out of all the multitudes and different kinds of trees in the garden, all the hedges, the bushes, everything that grew under the ground, above the ground, the fish, the fowl of the air, Adam, that's all yours. There's one thing I want you to leave alone. Okay? And I'm telling you, leave it alone. Because in the day that you eat thereof, the day you perish, spiritually perish. You see, he wasn't talking about your physical, because Adam was not a physical being.
At that time. Right. Okay.
So we talk about the
At
same
that
Adam.
time.
See, now you know which
we
Adam
may be talking about the same Adam.
We talk about the same Adam, see? But he broke his relationship off with the Maker. Having had everything, all kinds of power. What didn't he have power? Wasn't that predestined? It wasn't predestined that he would break himself off of God, but God gave him the opportunity to do so.
But that's a real good question now here, Deacon. because we are free will, free choice human beings. And was it predestined, or was it through the gift that God gave each one of us to make that choice? Because we can have so many different paths. We can have a path in front of us, but we choose to go here, that path takes us in one direction. We choose to go here, that path will take us in another. So that's a very good question that needs to be contemplated. Is it predestined?
Right.
That's that contract that he was talking about. Remember that contract was made? That contract was made before mankind had any inhibitions at all, good or bad.
Okay, but the question
and what
goes
was that
back,
tree? What was the name of that tree?
But the contract would be, again, here's your contract to come in at this time. Here's your potential and the gifts. And because we are co-creators with God, or God's ourselves, what else can we, what can we create?
Right.
And was that all predestined, or was it that we have a choice to sit on the couch?
Yeah, you know
and sit
something.
back
I
and
think
watch
that's
TV?
what Satan represented. I think that's exactly what he represented, letting Adam, who was also Eve, to me. Do you understand what I'm saying?
In the beginning.
When every time the sages or the prophet mention the soul, they say she. Okay. Okay.
Oh, that's just
Perhaps-
something that's normal, though, Carol.
Yeah.
So that's
Hello.
Right on. But I think it was the same person, Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, this was one part
Same
of Adam,
spirit.
another part, you know, like the wall,
Exactly.
the inners, and then the holy breath. So it was all the same person. And I think what Satan represents, because it's just symbolism, I think he represents letting us know, one of the Elohim's telling us that we have choices now. That's all. That's all. We have a choice. Now, you can go over and do this, or you can do that, or you can do this, or whatever you want to do. Come on, what you want to do.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because once again, in this tradition, and I know one of your technicians can understand this being from the culture.
Okay.
In part of our tradition, there's this spirit, which is the youngest spiritual creature of God, called Legba. He's the messenger, but yet he's the trickster.
Yeah.
You can't get to God unless you go through him. But he might have you doing a whole bunch of things.
Unnecessary.
That's right. Unnecessary to get to God. But unless you give him his, you will not be able to get yours. And we don't call him Satan.
Right.
It's just part of the process of existence. He's your friend, but he's also your what? Challenger.
Exactly.
He's also the trickster. But then when the deal go down, he can also be your protector. So I think when they played this Satan piece and this piece and that piece, there was people, King James and his boys, that was playing with, I won't even call it a trick, but they had an agenda.
Exactly.
But like the tree of knowledge, that tree is a tree that's bigger than King James.
Exactly.
King James' book is
And
cool.
he wasn't even Christian.
He was just a man.
He drink Christian Brothers brandy, but he was not
He
a
wasn't even a Christian.
Christian.
The world ain't safe.
Well, you got a point. But I just like
But
to throw
we are
this
the
on the
world,
table.
so why the world isn't safe? Because we didn't make it safe?
That's
Is that
right.
why the world is not safe?
Exactly.
Oh,
Okay.
Carol, good point.
It's
It's
true.
what we create and what we need to create from this moment on in the future.
Correct.
Each
Exactly.
one of us being totally responsible for that.
Right, because it says rise, dawn, beginning. So each new day that you see that sun come up, that
Yes.
means that you have a chance to wipe all that negativity out and start creating good.
Yes.
Yeah.
But isn't that where we get the word hope from? There's no such, you know, I talk to a lot of scholars and what have you. There's no such thing as yesterday
Right,
and no such
exactly.
thing as tomorrow.
Because there's no such thing as time.
It is only today or now.
Right, right.
But
right.
because when tomorrow gets here, what is it called? Today. Yesterday was called, when it was here, it was called today.
Today.
So that's just to give people hope.
Oh,
Because
okay,
if you have no
okay.
hope, see, you say tomorrow, and then your belief, and say tomorrow, that gives you a drive. But if you only knew that there was no tomorrow, it's only now.
Right.
It's only this moment,
Right,
right,
right.
now. That's
Exactly.
all count.
Right.
But you got to give people hope. And they say keep hope alive.
Okay. What is Shakespeare? He said, tomorrow and tomorrow creeps this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time.
Correct.
What does that have to do with what you just said? I don't know. Because, I mean, it just came to me, you know. So it has something to do with
Well,
what
it only deals with now.
Okay.
See, what we do now determines what we do now.
Okay. Okay.
What we do now is what it determines what we do now. Notice I didn't say tomorrow. yesterday.
Exactly.
Right now, it's important. And that's
Okay.
why you have like the King James guys and those other folk who try to distort the truth. That's control of masses. Don't you know the people who make the rules don't follow those rules?
Of course they don't.
Well,
Of
never
course. Are
follow
you
those
crazy?
rules.
Because they have a war and they back both sides. You know, to make sure they reap all the spoil, you know, from both sides. They don't care who wins or loses. I don't care whether it's the United States or who it is.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Only thing matters to them is the dollar.
Yeah, but
That's
I think
all.
part of the thing you mentioned earlier about reading, a lot of times, particularly those that's in between languages and countries, you can pick up a book, and this is the gifts that they talk about in King James versions. You can pick up a book, and although you might not understand the language itself, but you understand
The concept.
what's there,
Okay.
because there's a spirit that will speak to you through those symbols. Now, you might not understand French,
Right.
but if that spirit is working with you and it's meant for you to know, you will be able to feel the essence of the message. Now, that's if you gifted. It's back to what the deacon was saying earlier. Now, everybody thinks that just because you're human, you're special. No, you ain't. You ain't. You can be unevolved.
That's right.
You can be at different levels. And everyone don't have the same gifts. Some people have the gift of wisdom. Some people have the gift of healing. Some, you know, whatever, prophecy. But if you are in tune with yourself, you will find your gift. But the spiritual essence, and that's, you know, that's why I agreed to come on the show, and that's not agreed like it was a problem. But anytime we have opportunity to speak on spiritual matters, I think we have a responsibility to do that, because too many of our so-called clergy people have not gone beyond King James. But I don't think the new millennium or the next century will allow that type of restricted mentality
Exactly.
to continue
But
to
that's
lead
going to
people.
put them out of work.
Well, I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
But they say it's been prophesied that all of the religions will come together and there will be one unified religion.
Right, right.
That's
Well,
been
Doc, let
prophesied.
me say this.
Interesting.
What you said is exactly true. I've even heard a minister recite on that this morning, how many times the ministers have gone to funerals and said, used the terminology that was used in the book of Job, God giveth,
Well,
You
to
gotta
God
take it
taketh
away.
away. God does not take away life.
Exactly.
He is not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. And that's why I'm so glad that you're profound on that matter of understanding that God is not a God that wants to destroy something that He made, even though He gave His only Son. If you believe in the version that was produced under the King James authority. King James probably had no hand in the writing.
Right.
He just happened to be the one that was in authority at that particular
And
time.
manipulate it. Okay.
And, well, him, like I said, him having probably couldn't even read.
Oh, okay.
You know,
okay.
but the people that worked under him
Okay.
were the ones who dictated
Yeah.
as to what was going to be done, and he just put his stamp of approval on it,
Okay.
like you do on this particular show. See, before the show goes out, it has to have Carol's stamp of approval. Other than that,
right.
just scrap
I'm
that.
the goddess of everyone and everything that
let's
grows.
do this again. You know, we have a move called "Let's Do It Again."
Okay.
And speaking about those pastors, preachers, ministers who go along with all of these false things only because they want to stay in the status quo. What did you say? We're hoping in the new millennium that they lose their position because it's a position of power and politics as opposed to being a position of prayer and praise
Correct.
to whomever made it possible. And that's a whole lot of peas right there.
But you know
Well, but
something?
it's good.
Oh, go ahead. I'm
No.
sorry, sir. Oh, but whoever made it possible is us. Whoever made it possible is us. You know something? Every time I was concentrating on something, I said, why this happened, and I woke up one morning and there was an angel knocking on a steel door on the left side of my brain. I have no idea what that was. I have no idea what the symbolism was, but eventually I got the answer. So it is within you. You understand? And just bring it out. And I don't, I don't particularly care for King James trying to manipulate, because there's a lot of truth, mixed up with a whole lot of his little stuff. And
Yeah,
I don't
that's true.
particularly care for it. I take offense. And I take offense of anyone trying to put anything in me, because I have everything. Allah has allowed me, or whoever you want to call him, and the spirit within me is my spirit. Leave me alone. Don't try to manipulate me. Don't lie to me. Don't, don't do things like that to me. Leave me alone. I'm not going to bother anyone. I bother no one. Let me live. What happened to the pursuit of happiness? You know, all the time you're talking about, if you do this, you're going to hell, or you're doing this. There's no such thing as hell. I've read an encyclopedia. They don't even know where that word came from. The closest thing they can find to that word is one of the Moorish ships where they put, underneath where they put all the waste and stuff there.
Let me get this with you. Heaven and hell are two conditions, and they both right here on earth.
Conditions of mind, perhaps.
If your family is sick, no roof over your head, no food, no clothing, that's hell.
Exactly. Because I've been through it.
But when
it
your
is.
family got a roof over their head, all your children are fed, they're healthy.
That's heaven. Exactly.
It's two conditions. But see, you have those who have us praying on our knees, looking up in the air. When they say, you look up there, and they picking up all the gold and the diamonds and the minerals that's here.
Right. That's right.
Heaven and hell are two conditions, and both are here on earth.
Exactly.
They said, well, when you go to heaven, the symbols,
Yeah.
you're going to have gold streets. I got gold on my finger. I got milk and honey in my refrigerator. Now run and tell that.
I love it.
How about the parts that they say are missing? There's a Bible, the Israelite Bible or the Catholic Bible, has 6 books that are not in there.
Yeah, but where did they get that from? They got it from the Moors when they conquered Spain. Come on.
Judith, a great story.
Okay, go ahead.
There's the 1st and 2nd Maccabees, Ecclesiasticus.
Okay.
You see, these are just some of the. There are 2 more, which I didn't name. Tobit is one, which would make 5, and there's another one. But those are some great stories in there. And you get a feeling of reality, understanding how in the book of Tobit, a man caught a fish, big fish, okay? And the fish was big enough to eat him. But his friend told him, throw the fish back. And he caught the fish again. And he said, what should I do now? He said, well, tell you what, you cut the fish up, don't keep any part except the liver. And then you take that back, because later on it's going to save some folks' lives. It tells, though these are stories that you might be able to relate to, but a lot of other people won't.
Correct.
You see, because these are important stories, you know. And I being a stomped down, uptight Baptist, used to be a one-time young Methodist, have gone, my sisters, brothers have gone through other different types of religious aspect, but we all love under the same God. When he said, "Thou shalt not kill," that went for everybody.
Correct.
It went for those that don't know Him and those that do know Him. It's bad to kill. You're going to get killed. And people who do it in the name of are wrong. You know, Rabin was assassinated. Is that not true? By a fellow man who said he did it in the name of Yahweh. How can you say Yahweh's not one that wants to see anybody get erased from here? If he wants somebody erased, he's powerful enough to erase them. I can show you many places.
But I'm
where
powerful enough to do it too. I am too. See, people we always want to glorify and look for something else. And it's here.
Right.
It's here.
Right.
I can erase you. I can get rid of you. And I know he has some powers. And I know this man. I've watched you too. Oh, I've watched you two for years. I just love you two. Love you to the death.
Me too.
You know. And I know you got some stuff you can wipe me off.
But see, I think that's what the spiritual piece is. Spiritually, there's no wipeout. It's just creation and extension.
Oh, okay.
It's only in the form of the human that we're concerned about war. Because when the Creator created, it's like the deacon stated, everything is his creature.
Exactly.
So if he didn't want it, he wouldn't have created it.
There you go.
But different aspects of the creatures began to want more than they was entitled to. So they stepped away from the spiritual essence and became the material manifestation. And that's why we got it. Because, yes, we can wipe each other out, but physically, there's a consequence. Now, if I wipe somebody out spiritually, physically, I can actually get away with it. But
right.
spiritually,
It would not.
there is an eternal consequence greater
Of course.
than the
course.
consequence that we would know. That's why spiritually and religious doctrine and dogmas, I'm hoping that people begin to have more programs like this so we can just deal with it. Cool, religion is cool, but let's get back to the spirituality of mankind. Then we can have brotherly love and peace.
I mean, to tell you
Yes.
all to come back for part 3.
We'll hope for the best.
I love it.
Because see, I was going to say, you know, there's something I always say: you have to die in order to live.
But it's true. It's
That's
true.
why we know of no beginning. It's just a constant, you know, re-entering,
Change.
transforming, just
Yes.
transforming.
Yeah.
You
One
know,
of the
because you got to
chapters-
go to the plane of soul, and then you go whatever, and then you come back if you feel like coming back, and then you at one with God for a while. And we only have a few minutes, so come on.
Just to capitulate on that, God says, I make good and I make evil.
Of course He does.
And if
He's
y'all don't
everything.
believe it, you ask where did Satan come from. And don't when you want to find out what Satan looks like, don't look for a man in a red suit
Yeah.
with some horns and a tail. All you got to do is pick up that proverbial mirror.
That's right. That's
Thank
right.
you.
Look you want to see what Satan and who he comes with. If you don't understand it that way, do read the King James Version of Job. And it'll tell you that the devil or Satan came up with the sons of man.
No. That was Elohim. They said they traveled, in your Bible it says they traveled to and fro through the earth. That was Elohim. That was, come on, boys. Come on,
Exactly.
tell me. Tell this man who that was.
But let me ask the question: is it true that some must die so that others may live?
I think that's a beautiful question.
I think
Is it
I
true
think so.
that
You
some
said
must
something
die?
powerful.
So that others may
Yeah,
live.
of course.
Some must
Spiritually
be
or
an
physically?
example of what not to do or what to be.
Exactly.
Oh, certainly.
Life's lessons.
So God made everybody.
Exactly.
did.
So
Good,
therefore,
bad,
those
and
who
the ugly.
die, God commissioned them to die, right?
Right. Exactly.
Die
Exactly.
in the spirit. See, that's the key.
No, you can't
If
die in
you
the
take it
spirit. The
away-
spirit is God. That's
Wait a
the,
minute, you
that's
can't.
God.
But I'm talking about that's alienating yourself from God. That's what you call dying in the spirit, and
I
not
don't
to
think
be
the spirit
misunderstood.
dies. No, because
You
that's the
understand?
holy
You
breath.
can
Now, what can
separate
you do
yourself
with
from
the
God.
holy breath? What can anybody tell me
That's
right
called
quick? Because we only
expiration.
have a couple of minutes. What can you do with the holy breath? Tell me.
I just wanted to make a comment on the beginning of the idea of hell and Satan. Excuse me, that wasn't here before the Bible was written.
Okay.
Thank you.
It was not. It was created then.
Exactly.
And,
Exactly.
and Deacon, when you said if you want to know Satan or the devil or whatever, I am totally with you. Hello, put that mirror right up to
And
your
when
face.
you want to know God, who
Yin
you
and
put
yang.
that same mirror right there.
Exactly.
Tell them about
Exactly.
it. Tell them
Oh
about
yes,
it.
very true.
Oh yes.
Dr. Malik, come on. We only have 1
Well,
minute.
no, quiet as kept. I think I was just looking at what Deacon was saying. I really believe that the bottom line is spiritually, the whole essence of creation is one. There is no beginning and there is no ending.
Exactly.
It's just a rotational
Exactly.
process.
Exactly.
you know.
One gate open, the other one
Correct.
closes. One closes, the other one opens.
That's the answer to your question. One gate opens and the next one closes.
And see, and y'all heard it. They said they were coming back because we need more shows like this. And I'm so glad. I'm really honored to have all these people here with me today, and I really appreciate it. And I don't know what we want to say, but we're just going to go out just talking, and they're going to run the little credits and the music, and we're going to be just talking.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It was good to be here.
Thank you.
You know, it's what we do with the last month.
Yes.
We've had 2 opportunities.
Yeah.
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 So
These
It's
two
been
are
wonderful.
together.
maybe it'll
Oh,
matter.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it.
Maybe it'll matter. Mhm.
Wonderful energy.
Yeah, well,
Thank you.
appreciate
Just
it. I'm glad
beautiful.
we had the opportunity.
Yes.
Right.
But as Doc said, you know, there should be more shows like this. See, a lot of folks are afraid of this type of dialogue. Okay. Because it forces you to take your eyes and turn them in. It
Yes.
forces you to look at yourself. And we don't want to do that. I just want to have my 40 ounces and my blunts.
Right,
And I
exactly.
don't want to be bothered.
But isn't that a distraction from you looking at who you really are and what you're doing? Isn't that just a distraction?
Sure. But see, you want to see the ugliness that's in you. See, once you see the ugliness that's in you as a being, then you can atone and become the God-like figure that you're striving to be.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, I watch all of you because I love you, and
Yeah, I
I
appreciate
really
you
mean
watching.
that from my heart, Doctor, Malek,
Oh yeah, I'm watching.
Boise.
Oh, I just love them.
all of you. I love you. I truly do.
Well, it's an honor.
And
I walk with God. Oh, yes, I do.